around 3 o'clock this morning, I was done. And I typed and then I got confused where I was in that sentence and realized it wasn't a sentence. So I decided I was going to take a nap, and I kicked back and put my feet on the desk and dozed off and woke up way too soon. But there's a kind of tired that just derails everything. There's the kind of tired that you can push through, but there's also a kind of tired that has nothing to do with how much sleep you've gotten. And if you've ever had something on you, if you've ever carried something you couldn't afford to lose, you know the kind of tired, the feeling I'm talking about, because maybe it was the engagement ring in your pocket before you got on the knee, and so every couple of minutes you just double check that pocket to make sure it was still there. Sometimes it's the key to your car as you're packing and you slam the trunk shut and you're 6 states down and you can't afford to lock your car keys in the trunk. How many of you don't raise your hand, because I don't want to be the only one who's done that. But and so you make sure 18 times that the key is in your hand. I've got a trick. I open the trunk and I say the keys are in my hand. And I put a suitcase in, I say the keys are in my hand. I put another suitcase in, the keys are in my hand. Because if I put them in my pocket, they're gone forever. So the keys are in my hand. At the very end, I grab the door and I say the keys are in my hand, and I shut the door. So don't get in front of the trunk when I'm closing it, because I'm looking at my hand. I'm not looking at what's down there. And I close it, and now I know I didn't just strand myself, right? There's a mental weight and a tiredness that comes when you carry something like that for a long time. And you eventually just get that weight. And maybe it was like, if you ever went to buy a car, I wrote cash for down payment, but I meant for a car, because nobody has cash for a house these days. And if you did, you need an armored car to get there. But did you ever have a big wad of cash for something? And so you always keep checking your pocket to make sure it's there. When my wife and I were on our honeymoon, I did that. I had a little zip pocket to make sure my cash was in there. And we got out of a ride. It was the heart one that makes you all sick to your stomach. And as we came out, some guy taps on my shoulder, and he hands me this big wad of cash. And I'm not going to tell you what my first thought was, but my second thought was to check that pocket and make sure it wasn't mine. And it wasn't mine. And then I had about 30 seconds of deep conversation with God as to why it wasn't mine, since he was handing it to me. God won that battle. But that moment of panic when something that's important might not be there, right? It's a weight that you're not always aware of. But when that weight gets lifted, you realize just how heavy it's been. Remember when we went to Guatemala? Bishop warned all the pastors and ministers with us. He says, "Look, put your wallet in your front pocket so that nobody picks your pocket, because we're going to be walking through crowds." And he made a big deal out of it. And we got to the hotel and start to pay up at the hotel. And I mean, we went straight from the airport to a taxi. Not even to a taxi. I think we met with the missionary in a van, and to the hotel. There was nobody in between us. And we got to the hotel, and one of my dear brothers goes to reach it. It's not there, and just panics. And all of a sudden, he's about ready to call and cancel all his cards and everything. Turns out he put it in a different pocket because he forgot. But there's a weight that comes with carrying something important, right? And I could spend the whole day just telling stories about that. And it's just those things where you just can't stop checking, and you're always alert. You're always on duty. And the moment you start to relax, that panic flashes in, and oh my goodness. Remember the first night your child slept through the night? It wasn't a cause for celebration. It was a cause for panic in the morning when you realize you weren't woken up, and you go charging in there, and little angel's sleeping. particular, specific kind of exhausting, that carrying something precious in your own two hands, because the value of the thing and the weight of guarding it are the same weight. The more it's worth to you, the less you can put it down. And this is what I want us to visit with this morning, because many of us have lived like that for years. Not with a ring or an envelope, but with our own lives, with our standing before God. And that little quiet question that keeps coming back, it's not really a quiet question sometimes, it comes back, am I still saved? Am I still good with Him? Did I mess it up again? Many conversations I've had with people and with myself revolve around, I knew I shouldn't do it. I've prayed that God would help me not to do it. And God helped me not to do it, but I did it anyway. Did I just blow it? Did He just cast me out of His presence? And that sense of despair and that sense of panic that comes with, did I just throw away my entire future, God's entire ability to work through me? I kind of feel like if we were to ask God that, He would sing a song kind of in the doo-wop style, little darling, doo-wop, that is stupid, wop, doo-wop, doo-wop. God is not like you, We think He's like us. He's not. But we keep patting that pocket anyway. We keep checking to make sure that we're still there. We still keep looking up to make sure the hand we're holding is the hand of Daddy. And Paul is about to tell the church at Colossae that they can stop checking. Not because they finally learn how to cling to their life in Jesus Christ, but because their life was never or is not in their hands to start with. I'd like you to turn with me to Colossians chapter 3. We're starting something new this morning, and I want to be clear about what that means, because we're on a trajectory, and I don't want you to miss where we actually are when this chapter opens. See, Paul has already spent 2 entire chapters building something. He's told this church that Christ is before all things, and that by Him all things consist, that He is the head of the body, the church, that in Him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, that they are complete in Him, not improving towards completeness, but are complete already. And then right at the hinge between chapter 2 and chapter 3, where we will read momentarily, Paul says something just astonishing. And in an astonishing passage, he says something more astonishing. And he tells them that they were buried with Christ and raised with Him through the faith of the operation of God who raised Him from the dead. Buried, raised, past tense. It's already happened. It's already true. So when chapter 3 opens with the words, if ye then be risen with Christ, I want you to hear that the way the church in Colossae would have heard it, because Paul is not now introducing a new idea, right? He's bringing together 2 chapters of argument to their natural conclusion. He's already said you died with Christ. He's already said you were buried with Christ. He already said you were raised with Christ. And now he simply builds upon that foundation. And there's An interesting little piece of Greek grammar underneath our English word if that helps make this clear, because Paul uses a construction that assumes what follows is already true. It's the difference between saying if it happens to be raining, take an umbrella, and since it is raining, take an umbrella. One's a conditional, the other is an assertion. And this is how Paul expects us to hear the verse. That's how it is in the Greek. And other translations and other commentaries note that and translate it, since ye are, or ye then be risen with Christ. He's not asking them to wonder whether they have been raised with Christ. He spent 2 chapters telling them that they are. And so he's telling them here to build their whole life on the fact that they already have. Everything that follows in Colossians 3 stands upon that foundation. And so let's read it now. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. You may be seated. Thank you for standing for the word of the Lord. But did you hear it? Paul never paused to argue whether they'd been raised with Christ. He just begins describing the life of someone who has. Because if your life has been raised with Christ, then it has a direction. He says, seek those things which are above. And then he says, set your affection on things above. 2 different words here, and I don't want you to hear them as if he's giving you the same commandment twice. Seek those things which are above, set your affection on things above. See, Paul is doing 2 different things in here. Seek is a direction. It's effort pointed somewhere, right? It's vector. It's what you do on purpose. It's the will reaching for something, and it's active, and it takes intention, it takes deliberation. But then Paul changes the words and says, set your affection. And this word is less about where you send your thoughts than where your mind comes to rest. And I think most of us have the Christian life backwards. And we think it's mostly about forcing our thoughts somewhere they don't naturally want to go. Think about Jesus. Stop thinking about that. Quit wandering. But listen. In fact, yesterday, driving down to the shore of my buddy's party, I kept thinking about all the things. Hope nobody at work ever sees this, but the catastrophe I'm currently, working through at my job. And I'm getting stressed, I'm getting angry, and I don't see how we're going to get through this. And I said, no, that's Monday's issue. I'm just driving down the road. And where in this is my walk with God? And so I say, Lord, I'm going to start thinking about you and, just praying a little bit. Feel free to talk to me. Feel free to fix the problems at work while you talk to me. But, send me a little text saying it's okay. But, and I kept trying to focus my thoughts back on God, and it didn't work, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. It's not saying force your brain to think about something it doesn't otherwise. It says get so your brain naturally rests upon this. So the picture Paul is painting, it's like that long drive, the late at night, nothing on the radio. My car didn't have a radio for years, and so I forget the cars have radio sometimes. But, so there's nothing demanding your attention. And where does your mind go in those situations? See, that tells you something important about you. and your walk with God. It's not what you think about when you're being holy. It's what your heart quietly returns to when nothing is pulling on it. Now, Paul is still giving us a command. He's telling us to set our minds on things above. But this command is not asking us to create a new heart by sheer effort, right? That's the Lord's, create in me a clean heart, right? But it's calling us to cultivate a new orientation. And over time, what you intentionally seek becomes the place your mind naturally rests. The Lord said it plainly, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The seeking is deliberate. The seeking is the effort and the focus. The resting grows out of that. And just as your mind keeps returning to whatever you've truly given yourself to, the heart that keeps seeking Christ begins little by little to find him becoming its home. You know, the home button takes you back to the main page. The more you seek him, the more the home button returns you to him. And so now we get to the center of this in verse 3. He says, for you are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. It's hid. It's right here. Nobody can see it, right? When we hear that word, our minds kind of go somewhere specific. And one of the things I was thinking about when I read through that was hid away as in a vault, right? You got the safe behind the portrait on the wall because nobody ever thinks to move a picture to see if there's a safe in the wall behind it, right? We saw that movie. But so I think of that kind of safe, right? It's hidden away, it's locked away, but it's also something kind of cold and remote and secure and transactional. I used to work in a building that used to be an old bank, and I used to go down into the basement where they had the old vault. And the door is, no joke, this thick, this gigantic wheel on it. And you never go inside because you never know what idiot's going to come by and shut it on you. And they no longer had the combination, you know. It was just really, it was really cool to see. And that's kind of what I think of in my mind when it's hidden. And as far as the kind of imagery goes, it's not far off. It's not wrong. A vault keeps valuable things safe. And if you had something precious enough, you'd want it behind these steel doors. But when you look at what Paul actually says here, he did not say your life is hidden in a place. He says your life is hidden with Christ in God. With is not the language of storage, it's the language of relationship. And so before Paul wants us to think about security, he wants us to see companionship. There's a picture in Psalms that gets at this better than a vault ever would. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. And think about what a wing actually does. It doesn't just cover, but it also warms. A bird doesn't gather her young into a box somewhere where they will be safe but alone. She gathers them under herself, under her wing, close enough to feel her heartbeat, close enough to be warmed by the warmth of her body. And Jesus reached for that same picture when he looked over Jerusalem. How often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicks under her wings? That's what hidden with Christ means. Not filed away, but gathered in. And if you want to feel it all the way down to your to your warm and fuzzies, think of one more picture, a small child asleep in his father's arms. Yeah, the precious little baby isn't guarding himself. He's not watching out for danger. He's not calculating whether he can hold on tightly enough. He's not thinking about any of those things. He's just resting. He's just sleeping. And the arms are doing all the holding. And that's nearer to what Paul is describing than any vault ever could be. There's no cold custody, but it's relationship first. Security because of relationship, not instead of it. And here is the release, the whole reason that this anxious custody that we so often feel about ourselves and our walk with God, this is where that anxious custody can finally stop. Because if your life is hidden with Christ in God, then you don't have to keep checking your pocket because it's not in your pocket. It's with Christ in God. So the checking is over, not because you got better at holding on to it, not because you're more secure in your control of it. And so think about that feeling we talked about in the beginning, that, I don't know, that low hum of vigilance. You're patting the pocket, you're checking the bag, and that feeling only exists when that item is on your person, when it's still in your hands. But the moment someone you trust says, "Here, I'll hold it," something changes. You stop patting your pocket. When grandma takes the baby, you stop looking over to make sure the baby's okay. And that weight lifts. Not because the baby became less precious, but because somebody else has taken on the responsibility of guarding it. God has never asked you to guard the life he has already taken into his own keeping. Did you hear that? Never asked you to guard what you've placed in his hands. Maybe you, like me, have needed to hear this for a long time. Maybe you've been one of those people spending the years checking your own pocket. Am I still saved? Am I still good with him? Did my mess up today just blow everything, my entire walk with God? And Paul doesn't answer these questions by saying, "Hold on tighter." He answers them by saying, if your life is hidden with Christ, then you're not the one holding it. I want to connect this to something we just spent 4 sermons on this year, because it belongs right here. We spent that whole time in 1 Corinthians 13 listening to one word, "now abideth." And we've heard the language before, right? Abide in me and I in you. Remain and stay. Not something that arrives today, not something that arrives someday in the future, but it's something that's already present. It's something that's already real. And your life is not just hidden away in a place. And it's not even hidden away in a person. It's hidden in the one in whom love itself never fails. The security of who you are does not rest in your hands. It rests on that same permanence that we spent all spring watching show up in love. Because love does not fail. And your life is hidden inside that very love. And then Paul closes this short passage with a promise that some of us have quietly misunderstood for years. He says, when Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. it would be easy to hear that and think, well, then none of this is really true yet. It's still waiting for some future day, some future place. But that's not what Paul is describing. Your life is hidden with Christ. It's present tense, it's already true. What is coming is not the beginning of the gift, it's the unveiling of a gift you already have. Something is already growing in secret that one day will be revealed. You're not waiting to be given a life you don't have yet. You're waiting for the day when what was true today, what has been true all along, becomes revealed in glory. The life he has inside of us is not going to be taken away and replaced. We are going to be transformed to reveal it. So this gift is not way out in the future. It's with us right now. And what we are waiting for is that final unveiling. And so that's where we're going to leave it today, because everything else in the next couple messages depends on standing right here first, because we're about to spend a few weeks in the rest of this chapter, and Paul is going to use a kind of language different from what we've been hearing. He's going to say some things that sound contradictory to what I've been preaching for, it's July, right? For 7 months. He's going to say, put off and put on, active words and commands. And some of you hearing that already think, I hope that all of you hearing this think, wait a minute, you've been harping since January that we're not given a checklist of things to do. We've been being told, abide in him and allow his spirit to grow in you. You're right. I've been preaching that for 7 months. So I hope that you feel attention and wait a minute, if it's not a checklist, how come he's telling us to take things off and put some things on? Well, I'm not going to answer you today. I would like you to think about that periodically this week, because the answer, and I can give it to you quickly, but it's not going to make sense if I hand it to you too soon, but I'll give you this much. Whatever put on turns out to mean, it does not mean building a self that doesn't already exist. It doesn't mean creating a form of you that you do not already have. You cannot put on a life that's not already yours. Every command that we're going to see only makes sense standing exactly where we're standing right now, already risen, already hidden, already held. And over the next 6 weeks, I estimated 6 weeks, I didn't actually check the calendar. Over the next few weeks, you're not going to learn how to become somebody else. You're going to learn how to live the life that is already yours in Jesus Christ, the Lord. So before we do all of that, before we start putting anything on, I just want us to rest here in this minute, because somewhere in your life right now, I'm confident there's something that you're still holding on too tightly. There's some part of your worth, some part of your security, some part of your standing with God. There's something that you're still checking, that you're still guarding, that you're still afraid to set down. And I don't know what specifically that is for you this morning, but I want you to imagine just for a moment what it would feel like to actually let that go. Not because you decided to stop caring, but because you finally believed whose hands it's been in the whole time. Because if you're raised with him, you're not carrying your own life today. And you never were. It's hid with Christ in God. It's held the way a wing holds the chick that's gathered beneath it. It's held the way a sleeping child is carried without once ever having to cling on himself. So I invite you today to rest there with me for a while, because that's what this morning purpose was. And if, as I've been talking, you've realized that that's not me. I've never known that kind of rest. I've never entrusted my life to Christ. None of chapter 2 applies to me. Then the invitation is for you to not leave carrying what the Lord Jesus Christ is inviting you to place in his hands. He says, come abide in him. Come and trust your life to the one who has already carried everything necessary to save you. And if, as I've been talking, you've thought about that thing, or you remember feeling, oh, I've just thrown everything away, there's no way he can use me now. Today, right now, is a great time to come and abide in him, to put that burden that you've picked up back down, to come and lay it down again. And so I ask if you'd stand. If you would like to come down to the altar and pray, the altar is open. You're welcome to pray at your seat. But take the moment to say, Lord, I'm tired of carrying what is already in your hand. I'm tired of the weight, and I want to let you hide me. I want you to be the one securing me. Lord, I've made every mistake in the book. I've got something important, I'm going to lose it in 3 seconds or less. So Lord, I want to trust you. I've placed my life in your hands. Now let me let go and let you carry me. Would you come commune with the Lord this morning?